Hi, let's digest some beer. And tonight it's a really extra special beer from Jolly Pumpkin in Dexter, Michigan. The brewery is called Jolly Pumpkin, and they make truly special, one-of-a-kind, unique ales. In that all of their beers are oak fermented, not just like aged in oak. All of them, I believe, are fermented in a lot of the same oak barrels, and they've been doing this for over 10 years. But they do all different kinds of styles, but then put them in these same barrels, so they all have a little bit of a sourness, a little bit of funkiness, a little bit of oak. And this one, I think, is sort of their flagship ale, Oro de Calabaza. They call it on here just an artisan golden ale, because it's kind of hard to categorize a lot of their styles, because like they make a dry hop lower alcohol saison that's then aged in their barrels, and they do like a Belgian wheat beer that's then aged in their barrels, so these get sour in ways that aren't usual, and oak character that's not usual. And this one, it's somewhere in the saison, Belgian strong, pale, golden ale, almost a bière de garde territory. And this one's 8% alcohol. And I've had it years past, and I remember it being a little bit more Brettanomyces forward, which is awesome. But this one, the reason it's extra special is because it was bottled on January 9th, 2013, so it's over 3 years old at this point. And I'm pretty excited to see what it will taste like. I remember it being big and bright and fruity and funky and effervescent and pretty dry when it was fresh. And now I kind of I'm hoping that it won't explode or anything. I think I've had this in the fridge for maybe 2 days. Because a lot of times with these very overly carbonated aged Brettanomyces beers, if you put them in the fridge for a while, it'll make it so they don't gush when you open them. And on Jolly Pumpkin's website, they don't really tell you much about this one, but I looked at the Shelton Brothers website, which is their distributor, and they tell you a little bit more than other places. They say this beer is brewed in the Franco-Belgian tradition of strong golden ales. The sweet malt character of this yeasty ale is balanced by time spent in Chardonnay casks. So they say specifically the kinds of barrels, so they might use some specific barrels only for this beer, but this also might be an older description. And it says, like all Jolly Pumpkin ales, open fermentation and bottle conditioning create complexity and depth of flavor. Citrusy, buttery, peppery with a gentle hop bouquet. After 3 years, you may have lost a little bit of the oakiness. And when I look at the bottle, it seems like it's pretty hazy, even though it's been sitting in my fridge for a while. But it takes quite a while sometimes for this very non-flocculent yeast, a yeast that doesn't want to clump together and fall to the bottom. Sometimes it takes a long time for it to fall to the bottom. And this probably got shaken up a little bit when those brought up from the basement of a liquor store where I bought it from. So let's see if it will explode everywhere. For some reason I just don't think it will, but I'm gonna open it real slow and careful in case. Nope. Should be fine. Hopefully it's not flat. Oh, looks pretty nice. So they don't call this a saison or necessarily a Belgian strong pale, like a, ooh, it looks very nice, like a Duvel or Delirium or something like that. Almost a perfect haze happening in there. Not too carbonated. Well, seems like it's aged pretty well. Ooh, very, very winey aroma, white wine. Don't know if I'm quite getting any butter, but definitely a Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio tang to it. And I'm not getting too much Brettanomyces funk, actually. Yeah, it almost reminds me of some wild ales I've had, they were brewed with grapes, but it doesn't smell too acidic either. There's some wet vanilla-y oak going on in there too. Maybe a little bit of a hay and grass sort of thing. But it's mellow. I don't really notice any oxidation or anything. But a very white grape juicy. I think it's mostly fruity Brettanomyces that's happening in here. A little bit of tropical Brett, maybe some pineapple, and like very unripe peach. But it's nice. I think wine drinkers would probably love this. And maybe it's a little reminiscent of a Vino Verde. Definitely some green apple going in there. It reminds me also of the Spanish Basque ciders, the naturally fermented ciders from Spain. That smells very nice. Ooh. Definitely a little bit boozy. And the carbonation isn't super high. It's not too funky. It's super, super juicy. It tastes actually like white grapes that aren't even necessarily fermented. It's not ridiculously dry. Still got a little bit of sweetness and lots of green apple. Maybe a little bit of pear. And a little bit of lemon, but it's not too tart. The acid is really low, but it's bringing out lots of bright, fruity flavors. And the aroma is just very nice. But it's not a big funky Brett beer. For some reason I was expecting that, but when I first had this beer several years ago, I didn't quite know much about Brettanomyces at that point. But I feel like the Chardonnay grapey aspect is kind of taken over. And thankfully it's not too much butter or toastiness going on, because I've had some beers that are aged in Chardonnay barrels where it just smelled like butterscotch and white wine, and that really overtook everything. This is still really a Belgian golden ale at heart, and it's got that juicy fruit body and malt. And it's a little bit of a toasty vanilla, but it's not really buttery to my tastes. And the carbonation is about medium. It's pretty hazy, so it's hard to tell, but it has a really beautiful glow. And it's very pleasant and very refined. And I think that's actually one of the calling cards of all of Jolly Pumpkin's beers. Most of their beers are not too sour, not too sweet, not too strong, not too bitter or hoppy, not too spiced, but they still have bold, unique, really special flavors, but they don't just kind of throw anything directly in your face. I think they do a lot of blending too. Like this says batch 1119 and batch 1127. So I think maybe that's like they decided, oh, this is the two batches that we wanted to blend together. Because I've seen some other bottles where they had a lot of different listings under the batches. But I think they try to blend them to get the right qualities to come out. And it's a little bit different from a lot of Belgian sours I've had, and not like a Gouze, it's not like a Brett Saison. It's really about the this kind of juicy tropical and white grape flavors. But I'm glad the barrel is still there, because it kind of helps to balance out the juiciness, but I'm not getting too much of a licking on wet oak experience on my tongue. It's not quite carbonated enough to be fluffy, but it's soft and very juicy. And I don't see how anyone couldn't like this beer. It would be like white wine drinkers would love it, cider drinkers would love it, sour beer drinkers would love it. It's not gonna really blow you away unless you've never had anything like this before. It's very nice. Just every single kind of orchard fruit you can think of is in the aroma, but except they're mostly slightly tart, but not too tart and funky. Like unripe peach, maybe I would say ripe pears, and then some crabapple. With just a very slight hint of the vanilla oak. It's not too much. And some honey. Yeah, definitely a honeyish malt is what I'm getting. And a subtle peppery spice. Nothing as crazy and phenolic as like clove or anything like that, but subtle white pepper spice. Nothing that's even like coriander. It's like fruity like coriander, but I'm not getting that characteristic sort of coriander flavor, which they don't say they use any spices in this, but they do say it has a little bit of a spicy bouquet with blended in with some hops. They say 30 IBUs on this, but that's just to help dry out all the juicy malts and fruitiness qualities in this. But I'm not really getting much of a hop flavor, but nor am I getting an old hop flavor. The tannins do build up on the tongue a little bit. But this beer tastes extremely fresh and fruity and bright and lively. And it's not ridiculously carbonated. It's aged very well. It's almost aged as elegantly as a Gouza. It's sort of almost like it reminds me a little bit of some of the stronger Gouza, like the Oud Mariage Parfait from Boone, which that one's like 8%, but that has a lot more funkier characteristics and oakiness and everything. This is very nice, and I've never quite had a beer like this. It's not in your face with any aspects, but I think that's too. It's it's power. With beers like this, it's a little hard to rate it because it's really special and like masterfully done. But there's not really much to compare it with out there that I've had before besides itself, and that's why I love Jolly Pumpkin so much and want to return to all their beers now. That might be the next string of reviews I do. And it doesn't even have, it has like a little bit of the Brettanomyces kind of chalky aspirin qualities definitely in there in the nose, but it's not farmy and funky and mushroomy. They kind of, that chalkiness kind of blends together with the vanilla oak really nicely. It doesn't finish too medicinal, like you actually did chew on a bitter aspirin pill. That's like really underneath the super juicy white grape and unripe orchard fruits. So I'm going to give this like a 9 out of 10. It's very, very good. And I think it's that a lot of the American Wild Ale brewers can learn a lot from Jolly Pumpkin in restraint and blending, and not just trying to go all out with the most sour thing or the most hoppy thing or the most funky thing. It reminds me actually, I guess, of some of the Brett beers and styles they've made at Cambridge Brewing Company, another place where they've been doing barrel-aged beers like this for years. So, Jolly Pumpkin, Oro de Calabaza, 9 out of 10. But this is the 3-year-old version. I should try a new version to see how it's different. I might like it more, I might like it less, but I feel like this one's probably a little bit better, especially because it's aged so well. Good night.